Today we're going over the 10.4 refines in Fire Emblem Heroes. This month we have new refines for Tanith, Priam, Ascended Fjorm, Little Lyon, and Genealogy Hilda. We'll go over the new skills and discuss some build ideas. Tanith is a speedy sword flyer demote who has gotten a fun new weapon. Path of Radiance's Sonic Sword is effective against flyers and has adaptive damage. Tanith will get +5 stats in combat and deal 20 true damage that also works with AoE specials. The Sonic Sword doesn't have distant counter, but it does get the range attack style. Once per turn, Tanith can attack from 2 spaces away. For the refined part, Tanith gets near trace 4 conto and 15 flat DR. For Tanith and allies within 3 rows or columns, they get +5 stats, debuff neutralization, and if they gotta go fast, they get fun follow-up effects. Sonic Sword is quite the fun weapon. Range adaptive damage sword with fly effectiveness for those aerial dogfights. Tanith has conto to get out after, and she has nice effects like debuff neutralization along with no follow-up. Those last 2 perks can be given to allies from long range as well. It may not be as funny as the Rockman's Bolt Axe, but the Sonic Sword can take inspiration from Ragnell, especially considering some recent skills. Anytime you see a true damage effect that works with AoE specials, usually that's a sign of the dev's intentions. Range style, adaptive damage, and stacking true damage is great for an AoE special build. Attuned Eliwood's new Momentum Echo plus a Momentum B skill allows anyone to trigger 4 cooldown AoE specials if they move 3 spaces. Tanith can just go full attack stacking with Verge of Death or Life and Death, trying to get a movement C skill like Tempest, Tumultuous Echo, Hold Guide, or Shroud Assault. For the movement B skill, technically Assault Impetus would give DR Piercing to finish off a kill, but I assume most of you would just use Eliwood's Impetus Guard. If you didn't want to fully commit to Life and Death skills, you could use Slice with Sparrow and the Squad Ace seals. Honestly, the +4 from the new Squad Ace batch is only 1 point behind Life and Death without dumping your defense and res. Now for a more balanced build, Tanith can fall back on skills like Blue Skies, Excel, or Heavenly Soar. These flat DR sources can stack with a % DR special like Celestial Form, Haze Slice, Galeforce Mist, or Arch Rival. On the new Kids banner, there is a new 4 cooldown 80% speed or defense scaling option with Shatter Slash. It has guaranteed 40% DR for first attacks like Arch Rival, along with the Sabotage attack and defense effect. Shatter Slash plus Execution Breath could be an easy to use combo since Tanith doesn't have Slaying. It's not going to work on the enemy phase for distant counter. If you want to do that, you're going to need Breath type cooldown support for the full magical Windsword fantasy. Now for other skills, since she has no follow-up, Tanith could have fun with Trample's Desperation effect. You can then pair this with Potent from Area Superiority, Potent Assault, or even the Potent Sacred Seal. Naturally, you can combine a variety of these skills. For example, Momentum can be used for Shadow Slash or Arch Rival, plus you could also use Trample too. As a flyer, Tanith can stack support effects like the Flyer Mobility Seals, Crux Debuffs, or Soaring Slash Guidance Warping. A lot of options on the table. In conclusion, Tanith's Sonic Sword has some nice offensive utility, but you definitely want to back her up with more damage or cooldown support. There is a fun new refine we'll talk about later that can add a lot of true damage for the team if you want to play into that AoE build. Priam is an old 5-star sword infantry who has decent offensive stats, although this skill's a little more defensive with Dragon Flowers. Priam appreciates some tankiness because Ancient Ragnell has distant counter. Like other DC weapons, Priam will get the range attack style. One day I hope Ragnell will get its shockwave projectiles in another game, but I digress. Now for other effects, Priam gets +3 flat defense. He inflicts -6 attack and defense and -5 speed on the foe. Priam will then get the standard 20 true damage with 15 flat DR. For the refine, at start of either phase, Priam grants +6 attack and speed, Bulwark, and Priam Pulse to allies within 2 spaces. Priam gets another +10 stats in combat and gets Breath type cooldown. Priam's support effects are kinda like the Fate C skill. You get attack and speed buffing, Bulwark, and -1 cooldown just happening at a different time. He doesn't have Sling, but Priam will get to use Priam Pulse with Breath type cooldown. Bulwark is nice for Priam to set up a frontline when he's tanking with distant counter. Everything else here is pretty basic. We got stats, true damage, and flat DR. Like Tanith, Priam can use mobility skills to use his new range attack style. Brutal Tempest or Tumultuous Echo are the usual 3 movement plus conto skills. However, infantry have a new way to achieve this with Swift Spectre and a different Tempest C skill. Swift Spectre gives no follow-up and true damage, which is pretty good. Now on the Kids banner, Felix has a new Tempest upgrade called Burst of Thunder. This is an upgraded Tempest Burst, which gives +1 movement and Priam Pulse. But Burst of Thunder now gets +5 true damage and flat DR. It also can give up to +6 total stats based on your movement. With Burst of Thunder or Tempest Burst, Priam can get -2 cooldown before attacking. With his Breath type cooldown, he can get 4 cooldown after his first attack. Should be good enough to proc a high cooldown special on his follow-up. For enemy phase, if Priam tanks a hit, he gets -2 cooldown, and on his first counterattack, he should get another -1 cooldown so he could proc something like Shatter Slash. This actually works with any -1 cooldown effect like Times Pulse, but Suspector and Burst of Thunder do give 12 true damage and 5 flat DR. Also, it's a good amount of stats too. To go with this kind of setup, you could use Potent or Potent Finish. If you want to mix in some defensive perks, you can grab Nelsia Void to counter sweep effects. For other speed-focused skills, Duelist Blow and Parap are a neat flat DR combo. Parap also neutralizes debuffs, which is always good. If you're not into the speed-focused skills, you could try Warrior's Blow plus Rejuvenate for a defense focus instead. Now, for other passives, Priam can focus on cooldown effects. We have tons of Times Pulse and Tempo variants. Dual Support is a new way to get tempo to allies, and you can add it to Priam support perks. As a reminder, Infantry can also use Momentum Echo. If you throw that in with the Burst of Thunder and refines Priam Pulse, then you could also proc Shatter Slash or Flame Wall out of the gate. With all the 40% DR on first attack specials like Shatter Slash though, maybe it could be better to try and Prime Special for the follow-up instead. In general, Priam can dip into skills for both phases to go at his range attacking sword. He's not really specializing for either one, but Infantry have a lot of customization options. Ascended Fjorm was our first Ascended hero, so another milestone on how far along we've gotten for the refines. This Fjorm is a speedy axe armor that keeps her OG Ice Mirror special. Considering Chosen Fjorm has abandoned defensive specials, I don't know if Ice Mirror will be worth keeping even with its damage reflection. Nifl's Bite has retained its old effects too, but it removed its ally conditions. Fjorm has distant counter and can always counterattack against ranged foes. She gets Slang and gets +5 stats in combat. Fjorm deals 20 true damage per hit and heals 7 HP after fighting. For the refined part, like her chosen ult, Ascended Fjorm will get a built-in Corrin Ring. She deploys Icicle Terrain in a 2-space circle, and every other tile within 3 spaces get that Vert Terrain. Vert Terrain has Conto Control, -5 attack and speed, guard, and scout with no res checking. It is a very good Divine Vein. As for other combative perks, Fjorm will get +10 stats and 15 flat DR. Similar to Priam, Fjorm's combat perks aren't that crazy. The Vert Terrain has a lot of perks though, but the most interesting one is Scout. Besides the usual Sling, True Damage, and Flat DR, Fjorm will avoid sweep effects but only against ranged foes. If you want to use near save, then be aware of that. Most of this refine's value comes from the Corrin Ring Divine Veins. Being able to set up the icicles and Vert applying Conto Control can really mess with attackers who don't abuse extra actions or have the longer range attack styles. It also can mean you can run a different ring on your team. For example, it might be nice to give Fjorm Sigurd's Ring so she can move around to drop the Divine Veins closer to the enemy. You can also use Strat Assault to pressure the enemy into dealing with Fjorm's Fortress a bit sooner. As for combat, Fjorm is a speedier armor who doesn't want to get hit multiple times. Unfortunately, she doesn't have no follow-up, and the only way to get it would be from Clever Fighter. If you can outsource no follow-up, then Fjorm could maybe use the more interesting Parap. True Damage, Flat DR, and Fjorm is tougher to double. The debuff neutralization can be paired with Wily Fighter's buff neutralization. For more stats, Fjorm can also use Primordial or Torrential Boost if you want speed included. As for specials and save your skills, well, to get guaranteed damage reduction, Fjorm can opt for Arch Rival, Comet, the new Shatter Slash, or the new Armored Ice Cap / Flare. Ice Cap and Flare will activate 2 times, so the twin save skills won't affect them. That leaves us with Briar Save. You can get back Ice Mirror's damage reflection, but only the weaker 30% reflect version. When it comes to the type of Briar Save to use, well, Fjorm could run anything. She was intended for far saving though, since her No C Disrupt effect only works in ranged fights. But you could use near save or even magical if you want. Fjorm's not really all in on the res like Emblem Corrin though. For any build with the 5 cooldown specials, try to get Breath type cooldown. Fjorm can use Special Fighter, but if you can outsource cooldown, then you can also go with a stat booster or maybe even the deflect seals. For other skills, Fjorm could use Shield Fighter. Ice Mirrors would be actually on a 1 cooldown without Mart's Ring, but you're only going to get 50% DR with the double activation. This could work, but one reason Chosen Fjorm dropped her defensive specials is so she can get Reflex on top of a damage special. Also, Arch Rival can uncharge Ice Mirror, so yeah. At least if you drop Ice Mirror, Fjorm can even use an Echo skill. Well, she already covers Distant Counter and Guard, so we're left with Sly Echo, Mercy Wing Echo, and the all-powerful Deathblow Echo. Yikes. Well, if you're inclined for something different, these player phase skills could be used with Strat Assault. Strat Flame can work on both phases and gives Breath type cooldown. It can help shore up Fjorm's defense, but it doesn't have any speed. Overall, Ascended Fjorm's Refine is okay, but it depends on how much you value the Divine Vein Fortress. That is a good ability to have, but Fjorm's personal comment isn't anything out of the ordinary. For the season of Refine, we have Little Lyon, who is a 4-star focus unit. He's a slow blue infantry mage who is decently min-maxed as far as bulky mages go. Tome of Grado keeps its old effects, but simplified their conditions. Lyon now gets the Raven Tome effect, aka Weapon Triangle Advantage against all colorless foes, not just ranged ones. He will get +3 flat attack and inflict -6 attack and res on the foe in combat. Lyon also neutralizes his own attack and res debuffs. For new perks, Lyon will get 7 flat DR and a free follow-up. For the Refine, at start of either phase, Lyon grants +6 attack and res, empathy, and cancel affinity to unit and allies within 2 spaces. At the same time, or after acting, Lyon can also inflict Triangle Adept onto the closest foe and anyone nearby. Last, Lyon gets +11 attack, defense, and res, and deals 22 damage per hit. It's been a little while, but Little Lyon basically is a blue version of Fallen Lyon, except he gives cancel affinity to his teammates. The idea is that Lyon has Weapon Triangle Advantage versus red and colorless foes, and Triangle Adept makes those matchups even better. Instead of making green matchups super bad though, cancel affinity negates the Triangle Adept effect. Well, technically it kind of reverses it. All you need to know is that with Triangle Adept and cancel affinity, Lyon's team has no disadvantageous matchups. At worst, it's a neutral matchup as far as the Weapon Triangle's attack boost or attack penalty is considered. They did recently bring this niche combo back on Ragnell's show, but it's still very rare. For other support perks, Lyon will back up his team with attack and res and give empathy for more in-combat stats. Besides Weapon Triangle shenanigans, Lyon's combative perks are once again pretty generic. We got stat buffs, debuff neutralization, true damage, flat DR, and a follow-up. To add to Lyon's Weapon Triangle and stat support, you could use the res comparing skills. He's not the highest res mage, but Lyon makes it into the low 40s at least with Dragon Flowers. Havoc's debuffs plus Sabotage would be nice, and the ever-potent Pulse Up can charge a special. As a higher defense mage, Lyon could also forgo Still or Crystalline Water for Stronghold or Squad A Seals. Squad A CY can grant +4 attack and res along with 6 HP, you no need to sacrifice that defense stat. As for combat, the Weapon Triangle bonuses directly increase your base damage, so in a way that benefits the scaling of Glimmer, Astra, and Comet. Comet gives guaranteed 40% DR for first attacks on either phase, so I would go with it over Logic or Ice/Flame Wall. Since Lyon probably is going to get doubled, we want to end the fight with a one-shot counterattack ideally. You need to watch for Arch Rival, but Lyon can bust out the old Lagoose Friend build. Full DR Piercing Comet is pretty nice, and you can add more true damage with Arya or Finish A skills. Without Slang, Lyon will need extra cooldown, but you have a lot of options. We have many times Pulse skills, Pulse Up, or even Silence Ward. Since he has a defense stat, Lyon could also use Close Bonus Doubler or the Close Transcend Sacred Seal. He can also utilize Nelsie Disrupt from the Echo skill or Silence Ward. For other options, you can leverage more stats with low effects or lean into support skills like Favor, Rally plus Ruse, Discord, Link, etc. Dual support's Temple support is nice, and if you can get it, Lyon could also use the rare Odd Defense Wave 4 for Temple along with the defense buffs for his team. Some other decent C skills are Breath of Life or Pledge if you need more cooldown. Overall, Little Lyon might be rehashing his Fallen Elves gimmick, but it's such a rare ability combo, plus he can pass it to allies, which is an improvement. Lyon learning from his future self's pretty ironic, cause Future Sight is exactly what screwed him over in the end. Last up for today, Genealogy Hilda is a typical high attack and res Grand Hero Battle Mage who has one of the better gimmicks, at least for herself. The Fiery Baloney Tome used to give dominance to Hilda only. It now grants dominance to Hilda and allies within 2 spaces at start of either phase. At start of either phase or after acting, Hilda also inflicts -7 attack and res, panic, and res shackle onto the closest foes and anyone within 2 spaces. For herself, Hilda gets +2 flat res, she gets +6 attack and res, and +5 speed and defense in combat. Hilda will get 7 flat DR, a free follow-up, and inflicts guard on the foe. As for the Refine, Hilda gets another +10 stats in combat, 20 true damage, and 50% DR piercing. Combat-wise, Hilda gets a pretty generic +15 stats, true damage, flat DR, and DR piercing. She's on the slower side, so we'll take the free follow-up. Now the biggest buff for the firing Bolganone is that it's a rare source of dominance for allies. Dominance turns stat debuffs into true damage. Hilda inflicts -7 attack and res, and panicked field buffs will count as debuffs. It's a very deadly combo, so try to get speed and defense debuffing as well. Dominance will be hard counted by debuff neutralization, but it can get out of hand if not stopped. You really can't get the dominance status very easily, so Hilda giving it out each turn is pretty cool. There are quite a lot of units who use dominance effects in their weapons or passives. Those will indeed stack with the status. For her new debuffing prowess, Hilda has easy access to a great B skill. Speed and Defense Havoc is a res comparing skill, and Hilda has pretty decent base res, even higher than Lyon. This Havoc variant will let Hilda inflict debuffs to all 4 stats for dominance, and inflict sabotage to double those debuffs in combat. That's not going to add to dominance, but it's a good stat advantage, especially if the foe has panic on them. Now this skill will also give true damage and Kanto 1. You can get Speed and Defense Havoc from Ignatz, who is on the current monthly banner, but is also a normal 7 Divine Codes common manual. He only costs 400 codes, and we got a ton of those from the recent 3,333 day event. For this support-focused build, Hilda can use Still or Crystalline Water for flat res to activate Havoc. If you don't mind losing one attack and res, you can instead use Squad A CY. Hilda can also use Pulse of Ploy to inflict Ploy along with Exposure for more true damage supports. It also allows Hilda to passively charge a high cooldown special to nuke someone herself. As for special options, you can use Grado Glaciers, but perhaps an AoE special would be nice too. Something to keep in mind is that debuff neutralization effects generally only work during combat. AoE specials happen before combat, so if the foe has red debuff numbers, then dominance is still working. If you prefer %DR, then Hilda can use Ice Wall or the 5 cooldown Comet or Logic. Logic can scale decently if Hilda's debuffs land. It also can give -1 cooldown every turn like Pulse Up, so you can just charge it in 3 turns. For other skills, infantry have a lot of cooldown options Hilda can use, just like Lyon. We got Time's Pulse, Creation Pulse, Conjuring Breath, or even Lagu's Friend. She can pair these with Finish or Aria A skills. For other support options, you can run Favor, Rally plus Ruse, Discord B skills. Hilda can use Silence Ward, or the new dual support can tack on 5 more true damage to the dominant support. All in all, Hilda isn't doing anything new. However, dominance as a status has not been that easy to share with allies, and Hilda has a very easy way to get more debuffing synergies. She is exactly the kind of unit that makes debuff neutralization so valuable. Things get really messy without it. That'll be it for this month's refines. In terms of personal combat, not the most outstanding batch if we're being honest. There are some rare effects though that can aid the whole team, just depends on how much you value those effects for your allies. Next up, we'll be covering the newest 3 houses, Lords and Friends banner. We got a little kid with a knife doing all sorts of wacky things. Thank you for watching, have fun with the new refines, and I will see you in the next video.